All right. We are back Wednesday night. Hopefully, you guys' week is off to a good start. Rounding out. Got 2 more days left. So I don't know if you're working 9 to 5 or what you got going on. I was listening to a video by Alux earlier today. I don't know if you guys watch that channel on YouTube. I get my information from a lot of different places. Watched that channel for years. I've watched them grow. They normally put out some pretty good stuff. So every once in a while, I'll watch a video. They're talking about like measuring happiness or like how fulfilling your life is. And one of the indicators that you have a quote unquote good life or are really wealthy is that your Tuesday is just like your Saturday, right? So you don't have anxiety about going to work on Monday. You don't dislike what you do every day during the week and then like escape that on the weekends. But they said, it could also be just like you're so overworked that you work every day of the week, which is guilty. But anyway, it's just an interesting thought as we move into, a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight. Thank you, my wonderful wife with the tea. My beautiful wife with the tea. She's muy bonita. Anyway, so back to the topic. Money solves a lot of money problems, right? And I do think a lot of people here are going to be in a position where they're able to solve their money problems. But if you're not doing something with your life that you get fulfillment from, you get enjoyment from, and you think maybe right now like you're working this 9 to 5, and once you have the money, you'll be able to kind of step away from that and just assess what you want to do. A lot of people think that they just want to play golf and hang out on the beach or go travel. I'm not saying those things are bad or wrong or there's anything wrong with any of that. I just think a lot of people, once you have those things, might find them a bit empty in comparison to what you could or would be doing, right? And there's a lot of ways that you can do those things and give back or create value for other people. But I've found in my life that I get a ton of fulfillment from coming on here and again answering questions for you guys and hanging out and hopefully providing value and helping other people with the information I'm able to provide, benefit them and do something better for their life. So I don't know what that is for you, but hopefully on the other side of price appreciation, you enjoy this person says elk hunting. Elk hunting sounds great. I've been hunting here recently. I've been shooting more guns. I've been playing more golf, watching a little more sports than I used to. Clients are nice enough to want to go do those things with me. So I enjoy them and I will go do them with clients. But all that being said, I'm hopeful that a lot of people are going to be able to move into a paradigm where you do have a lot of wealth in your life. You're healthy, you have the money, you have the means, you can solve your money problems, but you're also doing something on a daily basis that you look forward to. You're excited to wake up in the morning and not, dreading going to work and working that 9 to 5. And I hope that's what I wish for everybody, to be honest with you. If you could be excited about what you do every day, even if it is work, quote unquote, I think that you'll have a lot less stress in your life. And there's never going to be a time when you don't have stress. It's at some level. Like there's always going to be something that's stressing you out. Again, money can remove obstacles and make things easier to remove stress from your life. But I don't mind being stressed as long as it's for a good purpose, right? Like we were on the all hands today going over the app that we're going to be rolling out for you guys that's in correlation with Uphold and to manage the LLCs and all this stuff. And we had, I don't know, probably 80, 85 of our employees on that call reviewing everything, which is wild, by the way, to sit as the chairman of a company that's grown from just me to, almost 100 people. And we provide and pay paychecks, and all of those people eat and provide for their families. It's a wonderful deal. But it's a lot of stress, right? Your payroll comes every 2 weeks. You got to make sure that you're on top of that. And it's a different level of stress, right? Because it's not just you have all these other people counting on you. And a lot of people don't want that. A lot of people, I don't know if they're not built for that or that's not their dream outcome. But I can definitely say, it's definitely been it's changed me as a person having that type of stress or need to fulfill for those people. But it's also allowed me to become, more. So anyway, rambling on here, but I just wanted to start off tonight and just say, I'm excited for the future for you guys. I do think that all the macro is going to play out in our favor. And you guys are going to be in a much better positions to have fulfillment in your life and enjoy your Tuesday as much as you do your Saturday. So we'll touch on the macro and then we'll get into the questions. Again, that's what you guys come here for. So we'll run it down tonight. We had oil pull back. There's a ceasefire. There's not a ceasefire. The strait's still closed. Now we're charging people a toll to go through the strait. You can't make it up. Like, this is the wildest war that I have ever seen. And obviously, again, praying for, no collateral damage. I don't want people to die or get hurt or there to be casualties or any of those things. Again, not excited about any of that. I don't want those things to happen. But I am halfway excited about the Strait of Hormuz shutting down just because I know what the cascading events are going to be. And a lot of people are telling me, oh, the reverse carry trade's not going to unwind. Now the war's over. Bah, 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 bah. Look, Bank of Japan is going to have to raise interest rates. I don't care whether you like it or not. It is going to happen when they want it to happen. And once they get, full clarity here in the US on what yield on stable coins is going to look like, they don't need to pass they don't need to pass the Clarity Act. Okay. I think, and I've said this lots of times, XRP will hit substantially higher prices before the Clarity Act gets passed. I think you're going to see price appreciation on XRP before Clarity gets moved into law. So anyway, once we have full guidelines on what yield is going to look like on stable coins, they can let this deal roll. Until then, I think they're still going to hold things off because we need that demand here domestically in the US for the stablecoin issuance to be able to stabilize the bond market. And if we don't have that, it's not going to be a good scenario. Like we've talked about that, at length here. Still hanging out at the upper bound of the yen versus the USD around 158, 159, moving back and forth there. Once we get back over 160, 161 is really kind of the high end of where I think they're going to let it creep up to. I do believe at that point they're going to have to move in and raise interest rates and implement XRP in their economy. And the other thing that's interesting, and I think there's two pieces, and I touched on this Monday night, but I would just want to touch on it again. Underwater sea cables. Iran is threatening to cut those. I think that's a potential catalyst for things to escalate here in this conflict. Separate of that, if they are demanding cryptocurrency in order for ships to go through the strait, the way that the US may react to that would be to sanction a network. I don't know what they are demanding for payment or proceeds to move through the strait, whether that's Bitcoin, whether it's Tether. But those would be the two most liquid cryptocurrencies. Tether is obviously a stable coin, so that's probably what they would want. But if they're going to do Bitcoin, I don't think the US government would sanction Bitcoin's network, but I think they might sanction Tether for many reasons. But if it was what terrorists or the sanctioned nations were using to circumvent SWIFT and be able to fund themselves, that's enough reason, I think, for the U.S. government to sanction that network. And then you've also got precedent that they've already set with Tornado Cash. So they've already done it. This wouldn't be, we kind of be out of left field because they've never done it to a stable coin before, but all the other stable coins are trying to get compliant, whereas USAT is what Tether's launched for their, compliant US stablecoin, and USDT, they're like, yeah, we'll get around to that. We're going to audit it. We're going to do some stuff. But when it's no longer needed to be able to back the treasury market, which is what I think the US government's used it for, since 2015 to soak up those treasuries being sold off by China and Russia as they de-risk from the dollar. We didn't have to print that money. We just had the largest buyback of any treasuries by our treasury, $15 billion worth. If we had to be buying the whole time, we would have already been in hyperinflation, would be in a bad spot. So I think they've used Tether as a proxy to be able to soak up those treasuries in the meantime. And then once they no longer need that, because we have domestic demand for treasuries for stablecoin issuance, I believe that they will just go ahead and let Tether do its thing. We are coming up, and again, if you want to put your tinfoil hat on, sometimes I wear mine. We've got CZ came out a long time ago and talked about Titanic sinking and boats that were untethered would come back up. Maybe it's a play on words to talk about Tether sinking on certain dates, but we're a couple days away here from the final voyage, the anniversary of the final voyage for the Titanic. It left the dock on 4/10 in 1912. Was struck the iceberg on 4/14 and then sank at about 2 a.m. on 4/15. So over 100 years ago. And again, you know, a lot of people in my circles that I run in realize that JP Morgan was supposed to be on that boat and was not. And the families that opposed the Federal Reserve were on that boat and they did die that night. And next year, 1913, we had Jekyll Island and the Federal Reserve formed. So coincidence, maybe, maybe not. But I think there's a there. And if it was, you know, serendipitous or however they wanted to circle back on that or complete the loop or whatever you want to call it, it'd be really interesting to see them, you know, do something symbolic on those dates. Again, super tinfoil hat, but I digress. We'll jump into the questions. Again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Wednesday night to come hang out with me, and we'll go ahead and jump into it. We got Samuel. He says, Jake, I'd like your just a guy on the internet reach. I suggested a bet with scams this evening. I'm tired of him obsessing with XRP, and I'm challenging him to a Bitcoin bet, part 1. All right. I wish you utmost success in your endeavors against scams. I currently have a wager with him as well. Schmoopus, good to see you, dude. He says, Uncle Jake, irrevocable trust with a holding company LLC, 65%, plus a trading LLC with 35%, with price appreciation of $1,000 value, runs multiples of lifetime gift tax allowance. Can creative mitigation reduce liability, tax liability for trading LLC? I think so. And the way that I think you're going to be able to do that, maybe through a couple means. I'm hopeful, just like everybody else, that we get no capital gains on crypto for domestic digital assets. The only thing that's a domestic digital asset, in my opinion, is Ripple and XRP. They're the only company that stayed here onshore the whole time while Project Choke Point was going on, and they were in the lawsuit with the SEC, obviously. So will that apply to other digital assets? Again, hopeful that that's the case. But irrespective, that would be one way that you're allowed to mitigate those taxes in a trading LLC. You can also elect that these are commodities. And so there's a different tax regime that's applied to commodities trading versus equities or other securities or capital assets, which is what most people consider crypto. So I would highly recommend, you know, speaking with your CPA and looking at designating what you're trading as a commodity versus capital asset. The other way that you could mitigate taxes on the trading corporation, you would probably want to incorporate language in there to be able to convert crypto to real estate. The way that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have structured this, it looks like there's a possibility that if you're trading crypto for real estate, there won't be tax implications, or they're deferred, kind of like a 1031. So, there's a couple different means by which you'd be able to do that, but the trading LLC is in the business of trading. So there's not a whole lot of things that you can really do outside of like going to a trading seminar or education around trading or publications that talk about trading or different conditions that might affect your strategy. You could write off subscriptions to all of those things, or education, or travel to events where you're learning about that stuff. Buying, again, unless there's provisions in your operating agreement that allow you to do so, the purchase of real estate would be outside of your business operations. So I'd work with a good estate planner and tax attorney, and possibly facilitate, adding that to your operating agreement in the trading LLC if that really ends up being the case on the real estate side. Some of the other things that you could do would be use the Augusta rule. So you could. So what the Augusta rule is basically you can rent your residence or property that you own to your business at a fair market value and be able to not pay taxes on that and pay yourself out of the business up to 14 times per year. I'm trying to think in what situation you would need to rent a venue to yourself for your trading company. Maybe if you were putting on a seminar or had a group session, or somebody came to your house to teach you and other people about crypto trading or other trading algorithms, or you had them over for them to show you a product, an algorithmic trading strategy that you're going to look to allocate to. You need a narrative, right? Like it can't just be arbitrarily you rent your own house to your business and not have a documented reason or a contract. Like all this stuff has to be buttoned up. It's not like it's just arbitrarily cool. I did it and I paid myself. Like you have to have a legitimate reason to do it, contract between your business and yourself, all of those things. So again, you want to work with the CPA, tax attorney, to make sure that this is all legitimate, the way that you are documenting this stuff in case you are audited. But these are legitimate reasons for these tax deductions. So those would be the things just top of mind that you might look at. I think the trading commodities versus trading capital assets is probably going to give you the most bang for your buck on that one. Same thing for the holding company. I would look at that. But yeah, that's good to see you on here. Good to see you at the Carbon 3 event that we had down in Austin here recently, and appreciate the question. Sam, oh, we already did this one. Sometimes it kicks me up in the chat. We just did that one also. My mother messed up, says legend. What's up, dude? Appreciate you on the kind words. All right, we'll scroll on down here. We got some more super chats. Rick, good to see you, Mr. Johnson. He says, Agenda 2030 happens. The have nothing and be happy. Tyrannical rules. Smart cities track us. 24/7 police. State. Up the wazoo. Will someone with 12,000 XRP, 20,000 HBAR be rich enough to be exempt from any of the tyranny? They're, like I mentioned before, and I don't like this, right? I don't want there to be a caste system where people have less opportunity than they have today. But I feel like we're moving that direction, which again, not a big fan of, but with the way things are trending, to your point here, looks like that could be an outcome. If you have that type of allocation to digital assets, you're going to be doing better than most people in the future, in my personal opinion. Those will be high, stable prices for both of those assets. You'll be able to borrow against them. You'll be able to earn yield on them, use them to produce returns, bunch of different things. It may even be able to do that tax-free, again, depending on the legislation that's passed and how that's worked out with Congress. All that being said, I think it's going to depend on what nation you live in, what jurisdiction you decide to reside in. If you lived, okay, so as an example, I don't know if you've ever been to Dubai or not. I've been a couple times. Highly recommend if you haven't been, by the way. Very cool. Right now, obviously, a little bit of turmoil in that region, and real estate prices have come down substantially. That's one of the things I'm going to be looking at acquiring potentially post-price appreciation is some real estate there in Dubai, golden visa and all the fun stuff that comes along with that. So separately though, if you went to Dubai right now, and even in the past 4 or 5 years, it's a police state. Like there are cameras everywhere. Okay. There's almost nothing that you can do where you're not being watched in Dubai. There's almost zero crime. Like I saw one cop in the 2 times that I've been there, and he was helping a person change a tire. If you do steal, like the cultural norms of like chopping hands off and imprisoning people and the horrible things that they used to do are still in people's minds there. And I don't know what exactly they would do to you if you were caught and convicted of crimes. I'm sure it's not fun. But all that being said, like super safe outside of the circumstances that we have with Iran right now in the region and what's going on. Like the people there, they're not doing anything bad. Like you could leave your phone in the mall and come back 2 days later and it would still be right where you dropped it. So is that a bad thing? It's technically a police state, like you just mentioned, 24/7. You know, people there obviously own things, and the taxes in that region are great. And they incentivize people to come there and build businesses and do things. So they're opportunistic on the capitalist side, but I would say they are a police state. So which is it, right? Like again, on the other side of this, I don't think it is a dystopian situation or utopian situation. I think it's somewhere down the middle, just like we've always had, and it'll be whatever you make of it, right? So but having a little extra jingle in your pocket isn't going to hurt your status or your ability to be able to pull things in the direction that you want them. So I think it'll be just fine. I don't think we're going to have a situation here in the US where it's tyrannical. But I do think there will be less opportunity for people in the future, which I am a little bit upset about. You know, and again, this is my whole point. I want to get a seat at the table so I can advocate that people do still have opportunity and create ways where that exists. Patrick McGuire, he says, hey, Jake, just discovered your content about a month ago. What happens first? Which happens first? My modest 3,000 XRP makes me a millionaire, or the Bears win the Super Bowl? Ooh. I'm going to go with the first one. I think 2026 is going to be a very good year for XRP. And I don't think the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl in the next couple years. So I'm gonna vote the XRP puts you in a good spot before the Bears win. We've got AWAGS 16. They say Carbon 2 here. Awesome. Good to see you. Cue the discount code. Not financial advice disclosure. If you had to guess, would you say BlackRock is already accumulating XRP through unidentified wallets? Yeah. Or they have options on the escrow or other wallets that already exist out there that they'll be able to buy at pre-negotiated prices. Very confident in that. But to your point, I'll go ahead and throw out the discount code for the mastermind. If you want to join, we have the waiting list for the app, only exclusive to people in the mastermind. So that'll go live next week. But if you want early access, maybe late tomorrow through the weekend, then you need to join the mastermind. It is going to be first come, first serve on that. We're going to be kind of titrating who gets access when as we roll the app out. But we are going to be starting to do that tomorrow. So if that interests you, and you want to be part of a community that has more in real life events than any other crypto community out there besides maybe Crypto Mondays, we would love to have you. You just go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar gets you the first month for $2 there in the group. And like he said, disclosure, not financial advice. Nothing here is for financial your financial investment, anything. It's not financial advice. It's for entertainment and educational purposes. You should make your own financial decisions or speak with a financial advisor before making those decisions. All the opinions expressed this evening are my opinions. They are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or the SEC registered RIA, which is a subsidiary to our company. If you need professionals, CPAs, tax attorneys, estate planners, financial advisors, certified financial planners, all that stuff, we do have those professionals that work at our organization or we are partnered with, both domestic here in the US and international. So if you need those professionals, you want to talk to somebody in your jurisdiction, all you got to do is reach out, go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and go to the contact us form or just email info@digitalfamilyoffice.io. Lil Jack, he says, top 5 coins that you think would do good for return on investment besides XRP. You are appreciated. Ooh, top 5 besides XRP for ROI. You didn't give me a time frame. So top 5 for ROI besides XRP, no undetermined time frame. In no particular order, from where things sit today, XLM, I think will do well. I personally don't own any, and I don't think I ever will, but I do think it will do well. HBAR for sure, Hedera Hashgraph. I think Hash is still it's a sleeper. It's one most people don't know about. It's listed on Figure Market. It's an Oasis, or Osmosis is the other marketplace. I think Mike Cagney is going to figure something out with that over there at Figure Markets, and I think that one's going to do well. XDC, Trade Finance, I do think will continue to do well. And what would be a 5th one? Flare. Again, that's kind of a wild card, but I think it's in the top 5 there. Excited about what Hugo's doing with F assets and everything that they're rolling out. And I do think as liquidity flows into XRP, you're absolutely going to see price appreciation for Flare also as more people use that. So my wife has, broke it down here for you guys over here on TikTok, but I will state them again: XLM, HBAR, Hash, XDC, and Flare would be my 5. If you gun to my head, no XRP, no time frames. Those are my next top 5. Retired fire chief. Need more tea. He says, please help me understand the relevance of TA. It seems to be based on the past, not current circumstances. The war, Genius Act, lawsuit, Trump, etc. It appears apples are being compared to oranges. Markets happen in cycles, period. Things often rhyme. And as long as constraints remain consistent, you should have similar, if not pretty closely repeating cycles over time. So to your point, constraints are changing in comparison to what they've been in the past. I would argue ETFs are another catalyst or constraint that you didn't mention there that are significant. We saw Bitcoin at an all-time high prior to the halving because of the ETFs in this last cycle. Never happened before. So it's broken the pattern. You also didn't have the rotation into altcoins for an alt season like we have in previous cycles because the majority of the liquidity that moved into Bitcoin was through the ETFs and not on exchanges. So, I think that's probably the biggest constraint difference. And again, regulation, like you brought up, stablecoin issuance and adoption. The lawsuit, I don't think really, I mean, you could argue that that did impact XRP's price. There was definitely volatility caused by the lawsuit when it was issued, and then price did remain, very low for an extended period of time on XRP while the lawsuit was ongoing. And I would argue that the altcoin season that we saw in 21 was definitely truncated in comparison to what it could have been had that pressure not been there. So all those things, I do think TA matters, but I think it's just another data point. It's not the end all be all. It's a point that I look at on a regular basis. Again, I'm not that guy. That's not my lane. But I do watch Blockchain Backer and a few other people, and Blockchain Backer's been pretty spot on, man. Like, I really can't fault him at all. He has called it the whole way down. He called the big fall off. He's called this, finding a bottom, and he's looking for either a quick move to the downside and then back up, or, continued sideways movement for a period of time where we go through Wyckoff accumulation before we have the next move up. I would prefer the first option there, where there's a big move down in the short term and then we go, just like everybody else would, I think, because that's your opportunity again to buy some more. And, shortly after that, there's significant upside versus trending sideways for another 3 to 5 months until we, find a floor and finally break out. I do think, you could show me the chart and I could show you the news, and you could also show me the news and I could show you the chart. It's kind of like the chicken or the egg. But I do think the one thing that I think Blockchain Backer would do better on would be to use a logarithmic chart instead of a linear chart. And the reason for that is I believe that crypto operates on a logarithmic chart versus the other. If you look at Bitcoin's returns over time, it looks much different on a logarithmic chart than it would on a linear chart. So I would agree with you. Apples and oranges, I do think this time's different, and I just proved to you guys that it is. But at the same time, I do think there is relevance for previous cycles in what's happening today. Until constraints absolutely decouple and change. We got CGL investors say, good evening, Jake. How close is Ripple to becoming the first crypto native company with a realistic path to full banking? And also the OCC charter making RLUSD the star and sideline XRP. Why or why not? I actually have a full video that I'm making on the relevance of RLUSD versus XRP and why it just adds to the need for XRP. It does not detract from it. More liquidity on chain, more interoperability between tokens or issued assets requires a DEX to be able to facilitate those, unless you're going to pre-fund accounts, which just again exacerbates Nostro Vostro, which is the whole point of adding this technology and using it, is to disintermediate the need for Nostro Vostro accounts at a global scale. If you just had a bunch of people issue more stable coins, including RLUSD, and again, many banks or other parties will choose to use RLUSD because they trust Ripple, but anybody that can issue their own stable coin is going to do so because they're going to be able to collect the yield on the treasuries. So they're not going to want RLUSD. They're going to want to settle in their stable coin. So if a payment is sent in RLUSD to them, it'll be routed through the DEX, settled through XRP, swapped to whatever currency they want, and settled in their ecosystem in whatever they want on the other side of the transaction. So it does not disintermediate XRP. It only exacerbates the need for XRP. As far as Ripple becoming a bank, they're already a bank. They've been issued their provisional charter from the OCC. Them alongside Fidelity, Circle, Paxos, and BitGo all got their federal charter from the OCC in November last year, and I think we recently had Kraken also get theirs. It's a provisional charter. It's not fully instated. Anchorage is, the only one that has their charter fully instated, which is who we use as a custodian. When it comes to Ripple, though, they're never going to be retail facing. They're always going to be institutional and enterprise. They are not going to have bank accounts for anybody that just has XRP there. That's everybody's dream, I know, but it's not going to happen. I've had enough conversations to know that. So you might need an intermediary that would want to deal with all of the retail and work with you guys and help you set up accounts that could face off directly with Ripple, so there's just one counterparty. All that being said, I think that they're very close to being past the provisional phase and operating at full scale with G Treasury and Ripple Prime and all the other acquisitions that they made last year for stablecoin issuance using Rail, and then also Palisade for their custody product overseas. So I'm expecting here in Q2 that they will see significant upside in revenues off of the implementation of XRP and RUSD and those flows with those partners. Potentially tokenization of stock markets, both NASDAQ and NYSE here in Q2 or Q3 of this year. Likely going to see, based on what the BIS said, a designation for XRP, Bitcoin, Solana, and Ethereum from them here in Q2 on what they are regulated and as far as collateral goes when being held by banks. As of April 1st, the OCC did state that banks can hold crypto on their balance sheet. And now that we have the CFTC and the SEC walking lockstep, issuing guidance, I think we're very close to, everything being adopted and a lot of the prices we've been hoping for coming to fruition. Before then, if you want to get things structured, if you got at least $50,000 to $80,000 in digital assets, we would love to work with you to set up your LLC. Again, live next week on Monday, we are going to have the app, and you guys will be able to. You won't have to use this code anymore. It'll be $1,500 if you want to go ahead and wait, but it is $100 a month for the corporate veil service and annual renewal, plus access to the Uphold instance that we're going to have. We're white labeling their solution to be able to allow trading in a bank account, and then adding many more features over the next 3 to 6 months to continue to create value there for our clients. This person says, legend. What's up, dude? You convinced me about Metallicus. Again, each their own. That's just my opinion. He says, what crypto app do you recommend with self-custody, a seed phrase, and that offers loans to store my XRP, not Figure Market? I wouldn't put it on Figure Markets. What do you think of Osmosis token, and is it worth buying? What's your estimated price? I have no idea on Osmosis. I haven't looked at total addressable market, what they're using to drive. Like, I know none of the tokenomics of that token, so I wouldn't be able to speak to it at all. What app would I use, or cold wallet? To be able to take loans against it that's safe. Ideally, you'd want it held at Anchorage by whoever the counterparty was. The only company that we work with to do that is Arch Lending. They also work with Mark Moss. They have a Bitcoin product. They're a legitimate company. I've known Rob and Freddie for years at this point. Or Drew, how you say his name. Great guys. They've always been straight. They've always helped our clients in margin calls and capital calls. They, will hold off as long as you communicate with them and make sure that you're able to cure, the shortfall, whatever it is, in a reasonable time frame. They've been great to work with. They would be who I would probably recommend for loans. We are their only partner for XRP loans, both through the mastermind and at Digital Wealth Partners. It's kind of an exclusive relationship there, as far as I'm aware. And then, but a cold wallet, I don't know that there are any cold wallets that allow lines of credit or liquidity against your XRP as of today. that's something that we want to build into the Uphold app and what we're doing, and we already have it at Anchorage. If you are a client of Digital Wealth Partners, but just cold wallets in general, just full disclosure, we are an affiliate for Decent. Make like $5 if you use our link to buy one of their wallets. I can't promote anything I don't actually believe in or actually use. So I've used their wallet many times. It's great. I like the biometric. The interface is great. The breadth of assets that they offer on there for custody is awesome. They do have a backup code that your spouse could use to get in there if they don't have your thumbprint. They do have ways to be able to stake your stuff with Doppler if you're outside the U.S. Domestic, they geofence the U.S., but you could use a VPN, right? Again, not condoning that or advising anybody to do it, just talking about what's out there. So I like Decent. It has the most functionality for anything as of today, as far as doing something with your XRP still inside the wallet. Big in South Korea, and again, that's a huge market for XRP, and I think why they've been so progressive when it comes to that asset. Other good wallets, just if you're going to hold XRP, Tangem, Enclave, LEPAL, Trezor. There's many other cold wallets out there. Again, we just prefer Decent. And so that's what I would recommend if you're looking for a cold wallet. And again, if you're looking for a loan, you can join the mastermind and work with Digital Wealth Partners and get access. And Arch Lending will hold your assets at Anchorage, which is institutional custody, while you have the loan out against them. Nick Knack, he says, "Hey Jake, God bless you and the fam." God bless you, dude. Thank you for the super chat and the time. He says, "What's your favorite bodybuilding pose? And also, when XRP moons, you're a quadrazillionaire. What will be some philanthropic goals you have in mind besides horses?" Which is cool. So bodybuilding pose, favorite pose. Either the Archer or vacuum pose by Frank Zane was pretty sick back in the day. One that's no longer done that is kind of funny. It's not my favorite pose, but it's kind of funny. It's called the moon pose. And there's pictures of Tom Platz doing that back in the early 80s at the Olympia, showing off his hamstrings. Yeah, praying mantis is another one. It's more of this where you can see full arm development. And then, yeah, I mean, back double bicep always, if you have a good back, is always a good shot. So I did classic bodybuilding when I competed. We did a full posing routine and all that stuff. Bunch of different levels and back and forward and transitions and all of that. I actually really enjoyed that. Like Francis Bonafato, if you haven't ever watched one of his posing routines, highly recommend. All right, so to the fun stuff everybody wants to know about, which is XRP mooning and philanthropic goals. How personal do I want to get here? There have been some things that have happened to me in my life or close loved ones that haven't been so fun. I won't name who in my life, but I have somebody close to me that is manic depressive bipolar. And I don't know why that happened to them. I've also had a few people in my life that were schizophrenic. I don't know if that's hormone related or if it's just mental disease. I can't find anything that was trauma that I could point to, like specifically, that would have caused the outcomes that have happened to certain people in my life. So I would love to figure that out, like dump a bunch of money into R&D and really define what's causing that for people so that you could cure the root cause. That's important to me. I think that, this person, a bunch of people over here saying American diet and food. The couple of people that I know were actually very healthy. Now it could be their vagus nerve for sure. I mean, your brain is very tightly correlated to your diet and your gut flora. So if you've taken a lot of NSAIDs, or they prescribed you, I can't think of the word. It's what they give you to like knock out bad stuff. Sorry, I should know that one off the top of my head. Anyway, those things can absolutely mess up your gut. You can have Crohn's disease and, big holes in your gut lining, and that can cause a lot of things to get through your gut lining and into your bloodstream that cause a lot of issues. And you'll have autoimmune disease. That's prevalent in our society because of different things. First says opioids. I wasn't going to say opioids, but pain medication, NSAIDs for sure, Aleve, Aleve, or what's the other one? I take Tylenol if I have any pain because it's not an NSAID. Anyway, all that being said, there's definitely some things on the food side, the health side, and ibuprofen. My wife, she's got it. Antibiotics, that was the word I was looking for. Yeah, if you've taken a lot of antibiotics or NSAIDs, it can definitely mess up your gut lining. So if you're currently have an ailment, and this is just PSA for anybody that's watching this, if you have a chronic pain and you're taking those things daily, you're just compounding the bad effects. You're gonna ruin your gut lining. You're gonna have autoimmune disease and other issues. I would highly recommend finding other treatment methods for consistent pain if you do have that versus taking over-the-counter NSAIDs. Anyway, so that's my, the things that I would like to contribute toward and set in motion and contribute, donations to on the other side of this. And I think like one of the coolest thing I think that's ever going to come from the mastermind is we have so many awesome people there that have so many good causes that they want to affect change for. There's going to be no shortage of ways to be able to donate money to help people and do R&D and all these other things on the other side of price appreciation. So if that interests you, but you're like, I know I want to help people, but I don't know what I want to do yet, join the mastermind, have conversations in there. Get to know other people, how things have affected them in their life and why they're adamant that they want to help certain things. My buddy here in Dallas, he's a GC. He wants to create mobile showers for homeless people. Basically, buy 18-wheelers, outfit them with showers, and then just rotate it around Dallas so that homeless people have a way to be able to get clean at least one day a week. Because he has had people in his life that were homeless, so everybody has their story. Everybody has family. Everybody has a friend or something that's happened to them that's affected them negatively. And if you can do something to be able to help others in that position or fix those problems for people because you've been blessed, I think not only is that a good thing to do, I think it's kind of your responsibility when God blesses you. So Nick, he says, hey, mate. If the BOJ raises 25 basis points next meeting, it's going to be much more than that, Nick. Where does that leave us getting a spike in the reverse carry trade? Fear is that it takes longer. It takes less to unwind. Thanks. Fear is the longer it takes, the less it takes to unwind. Look, here's a crystal ball. It doesn't tell me the future, though. Okay. I'm confident that we are going to see Japan raise more aggressively than 25 basis points in the short term because they need to. They're going to have to because of the position that they're in. We have seen oil fall off a cliff over there. I haven't looked at it in the last couple of hours here. But if I look at oil priced in yen, we are at around 15,000 last time I looked at it. Fell almost 3,000 on the news that the ceasefire was going to happen. And we've continued to level out here around 15,000 after hovering at 18,000 for an extended period of time last week and into early this week. So if we see another spike here, I don't know what they're going to do to be able to damp it down. I think Trump's, tweeting things to be able to kind of kick the can a little bit for everybody. And I don't know what they're kicking the can to, but I don't think it's going to be much further. I feel like we're real close to the gutter where you kick the can into the gutter type situation instead of kicking it down the road any further. So anyway, all that being said, I do think that they're going to raise more than 25 basis points, and I do think that that is going to cause the reverse carry trade to unwind, and I think they're going to blame it on Trump and Iran and the conflict there. Emit says, not me, in relation to your intro, I'm going to keep farming, only mucho bigger. Thank you, and God bless. See, that's cool, right? Like providing people with food. If that fills you up, dude, that is awesome. You probably come from a long line of farmers if you still have the farmland and you're able to do that. There's only a couple people that I have ever met that have gotten into farming over their lifetime. Most everybody else that I know that's in farming, it is a generational deal. Their families had that land and they've been doing it for a long time. But I would agree with you. I think that that's going to be a big piece on the other side of this. Something I'm interested in as far as farming goes is vertical farms. So the largest vertical farm, I believe, is in New Mexico or Arizona, and it's like a 1 mile box, very large facility, and they can grow as much as like 50,000 acres worth of food in that facility because it's vertical, right? So the water runs down these pipes where the different polyps and other things are put into these tubes, and they're able to glean the nutrients off of the water and grow without any pesticides or fertilizers. Pesticides and fertilizers are the predominant reason that people have cancers and other issues. The caveat to that, I would say, is that you cannot support 8 billion people on a planet without fertilizers and pesticides. Like, you just can't produce enough food at scale to be able to feed that many people without those two things. So glyphosate and Monsanto, horrible for you. It replaces glycine in your cellular structure, and it causes mayhem with a bunch of things. You have been exposed to it your entire life. If you've eaten food from the grocery store, if you've been here in the US anywhere, it's basically in the air. Like, you can't get away from it at this point. So horrible. But if there is a way to build out other solutions at scale for vertical farming where we don't have to involve pesticides and fertilizers, that's something that I would definitely get behind and I'm a big advocate for. And again, traditional farmers, shout out to you guys. That is hard work. And a lot of times Mother Nature does not work with you, and you'll lose crop or have issues. If the government subsidizes you to not farm your land, or you got to rotate your crops to make sure that you're maintaining certain nutrients in the soil, like, it's a lot more complicated than most people, I think, realize. Artemis, he says, tea lady. I'm not the tea lady, but my beautiful wife did bring me some tea, so I appreciate the tea lady. He says, hello. Also, Jake, the legend. What's up, my dude? With all the news regarding success and usage already in XRP, why does XRP stay stagnant without the reverse carry trade? When do you think we will decouple from everything? I've said this plenty of times, but I will reiterate it here. They can't use XRP at scale until there is enough liquidity in it. Until they cause a supply shock to be able to drive the price north of $100 per XRP, it's really not usable in the capacity that they are going to need it for back-end settlement of the stock market or Swift or the FX market or commodities market, any of these applications to be able to settle these real time on the back end, or be the intermediary in the trading of those markets, it's got to have enough liquidity in it. And the only way that's going to happen is if we see significant demand with very little supply available. I haven't looked to see if Ripple sold any of their escrow this month on the market yet. They definitely waited a long time in March before they put it out on the market and sold it off. And they only sold like 177 billion or million, excuse me, instead of, you know, what they normally sell 300 million. So there's definitely less out there this month than there have been in previous months on the OTC desk and the dark pools, but the volume on the ETFs hasn't been as large as it's been in the past either. So at some point, I think what's going to cause, if you wanted like a hard answer, I think it's the reverse carry trade is going to unwind. Tether's going to have implications either through sanctions or something on their balance sheet takes a hit because of the reverse carry trade. Bitcoin's going to dump. And they're going to need liquidity in XRP to settle both exchanges and the back end of the stock market at the same time. And they will rotate liquidity out of the Bitcoin ETFs and other products into XRP when the reverse carry trade unwinds. I think Japan will start using XRP first and drive demand, and then the rest of the world will follow behind Japan. So again, everybody else out there says, I'm wrong. The reverse carry trade is not going to happen. It's not needed. Look, again, this is just one man's opinion. Go listen to other people, come to your own conclusions. I've done years and years and years of research. I have talked to a lot of people. We had a podcast today that I think you guys will enjoy when it's released this weekend. But all that being said, you know, this is just my theory. So I'm not the end all be all. But I do think, you know, I'm going to be right on this one. When the reverse carry trade goes, that's when we're going to see XRP decouple from the market. Roughing it. Hey, ma'am, how are you? She says, hi. Do you have any cold wallets? And if so, how many? Can you please tell me what kind you have? I have to make sure I don't have all my assets in one place and in good wallets. Great question. So a long time ago, I had 12 cold wallets between Tangem and Zaman and Ledger and Decent, the exchange accounts that I had, Exodus, Atomic Wallet. I had my stuff spread out a bunch of different places. Some of those are warm wallets. Some of them are exchanges. Some of them are cold wallets. Some of those I had multiple. I don't currently use any of those things. I use Anchorage, which is institutional custody with Digital Wealth Partners, which is the whole point of it. Like my wife's on the account, all those things. So that would be my recommendation if you have more than 50,000 XRP. And again, our clients don't hold all their XRP there. It's just one spot to be able to mitigate the majority of risk and have insurance on the assets and somebody on the account. You know, again, Zaman, we'd say wins product over there. It is a hot wallet for XRP, so just be aware of that. It's not a cold wallet. Decent, like I mentioned earlier, again, full disclosure, we're an affiliate, make like $5 if you buy it from them, but they do a good job. Separate of that, Tangem, you know, you can use a Tangem card with your Zaman wallet. Tangem has their own wallet. So, you know, those are just some suggestions and things that I've used in the past. And again, consolidating to one deal was difficult for me, but I have full trust in Anchorage security. BlackRock holds their assets there. They're insured. And obviously, you know, our team has full oversight on all that. So that's what gives me the warm and fuzzy. But again, I understand why a lot of our clients would hold some with us and some in some of those other options as well. Truth of Hearts, they say, Jake, thoughts on Bitcoin payments being accepted and demanded in seconds for ships to pass the Strait of Hormuz? XRP is payments in seconds. They're definitely not going to get Bitcoin in payments in seconds. Bitcoin processes about 6 transactions per second. Takes somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes to have 3 validations on the network, and most of it's settled between, exchange accounts. If you were sending it wallet to wallet, it can be faster than that. It can be 10 to 15 minutes if it's direct wallet to wallet. But if it's, to an exchange or another counterparty that's holding it, it's definitely going to take longer for 3 validations to happen on the network. XRP would be a excellent option for those, but I really don't want them using XRP. I think this is to create a narrative that Bitcoin and Tether are used for illicit activity and directly tie it in a circumstance publicly visible to that, so that they have recourse to be able to sanction it or cause problems. I think that both of those have been instrumental in the adoption of this asset class and scaling it out. But at some point in the future, when they are no longer needed, the government will likely rug them. Again, I think Bitcoin was an inside job from the jump, and Tether, I think, got rolled into the US government sometime in 2014, 2015. So again, this is me with my tinfoil hat on. Take it with a grain of salt, but those are just my opinions. Again, not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group. Mr. Johnson, again, he says, muscled oracle of DAG. Strait is open back up. No, it's not. There was 4 ships that went through the Strait today. None of them had oil. So you're going to tell me, like, the day that they opened it, no ships went through it? I don't believe it. So yes, reverse carry trade is going to happen. Price appreciation is going to happen. Reverse carry trade is the catalyst. I don't know what you guys want me to tell you. Like, that's the only scenario where the dominoes that fall beyond that and the ripple effects, for lack of a better pun, will cascade in a way that it benefits XRP. That is the circumstance. So until that happens, it's going to keep doing what it's doing, which is just floating along with Bitcoin, trading sideways, not doing anything good. So if accumulate while you can, I guess is the best advice, at least what I'm following. We've got Infinite Growth. XRP says, Jake, DWP client here. Awesome. Glad to be working with you. Do you see the ex-BOJ board member saying that he thinks rates will need to be raised before July and more than expected? Yes, I sure do. And I think he's correct. I think that they're going to have to move here potentially in April to prevent the yen from hyperinflating or them having they can't service the debt. Their currency's too weak. So they're going to have to do something to strengthen their currency. They need, the bond yields are already out at 2.5% on the 10-year almost. They need to come to 1.5. They need 75 basis points in one whack. And I think that's what they might do. David, Mr. Valentine, he says, sir, secret weapons, sir. I have an LLC set up. Awesome. Anchorage account set up. Perfect. I frequent the OTC desk. Well done, sir. 20 bips. That's all we charge for trading fees over there at Digital Wealth Partners on any size trade. Doesn't matter if it's $5 or $5 million, it's 20 bips. So, take advantage of that if you guys are a client over there. Mercury account is set up. Awesome. Now that you no longer work with Laughlin, how do I move everything to the new application? Thanks, Jakey. Say hello to Sebastian. I sure will. I will give Sebastian flowers from you, sir. I appreciate that. We get a lot of kudos for him, and we're really glad to have him as an employee. He's one of our youngest advisors. So to the new application, we'll go ahead and go over this real quick again for you guys. So starting Monday next week, the application will be live. We will be sending out emails to anybody that has an LLC that's formed it with us, whether you've used a previous provider or when we work with Laughlin, in order to be able to migrate that over to the new app to be able to manage everything right there in one spot. You will be receiving those emails early next week, likely on Monday would be when I would expect those to start going out. So unless you're on the waiting list, if you're in the mastermind, then you're on the waiting list. A lot of people have went ahead and signed up for that. We're going to be rolling out the beta for the app again over this weekend, starting potentially late tomorrow or early Friday. And the first 500 people on the wait list will be who have the access first. And then we will be, sending out that link to about 1,000 people at a time that are on the waiting list to onboard into the app. And again, that's not because we don't want everybody to move all at the same time. We would love that. We want to be methodical about this. We know that there's a lot of demand for it, and we want it to be a smooth transition and easy process, and also be able to answer all the questions. We have about 1,000 people that are already attending a webinar that's going to go over the app and how to onboard and what to do and all of that tomorrow. We're going to be recording that webinar. Everybody else, starting next week, that has an LLC with us will be receiving that webinar in order to be able to review it, get most of your questions answered, onboard in the app, and if you have any issues, you obviously can reach out to our support team. And again, very excited for this product. We're going to be able to reduce costs for people and make it a much better experience than what we've had in the past. Christ is King, love the name. He says, ETA for price appreciation, how long will XRP stay at high prices? Everybody wants to know. I don't know how long it's going to take. I know that it's tied to macro events. When those macro events play out, you will get the outcome that you're looking for. How long is it going to stay there? Once there's enough liquidity in XRP and they start using it, the volume that will move over the network will hold it at a high stable value. And that's what will give the asset credibility and backing and low risk for the BIS to designate it a tier 1 asset, which is what I do believe we're going to see XRP designated here in Q2, potentially. So I didn't answer your first question, but I kind of answered your first question based on circumstances that may transpire. So all that being said, I do think it needs to be a high stable price before the BIS will give it a tier 1 designation. Could they come out and designate it a different class first? Sure. But I do think once it hits those high prices and we do see consistent volume over the network, you'll basically be backing the asset by global trade and market making. So the back end settlement of the stock market, FX market, commodities, SWIFT, like if all of those parties are choosing XRP and the XRPL to settle, which I believe they will be, that's unless all of those things collapse at one time and pretty much we have nuclear Armageddon or some other circumstance where the world stops trading, and they can't once they're on the network, by the way. Like there's underground bunkers that hold the nodes, and it wouldn't matter what was going on, the trading would always be trading. So it's basically foolproof once it's at scale and working, and we will see high stable prices for XRP really in perpetuity after we see this next jump, in my opinion. Dr. Dennis, good to see you. He says, Jake, is the Treasury-backed stablecoin plan a strategy to end the Fed? Is this a war, or are the Rothschilds and Rockefellers on board? Everything feels so manipulated. Who's doing it, us or them? I don't know which side you're on when you say us or them. I'm assuming you're not a Rothschild or a Rockefeller based on your question. Yeah, very, I'll say it this way. I think things that are going on right now are at a much larger or grander scale than the general public is aware of. I think that there's a transition going on away from certain people that have had influence for the last 100 years through the Federal Reserve. Will the Fed be completely replaced? We haven't seen Warsh come in yet. We haven't seen Powell leave yet. He's not supposed to leave till mid-May. I think May 15th is his last day, and they will have to, and he said he will stay in if, they don't have somebody in place by then. So I'm hopeful. I'll say it that way. I would love to see the Fed and the IRS go away. The Fed is not federal. It is not a reserve. It is not part of the government. It's a private organization that is owned by 6 of the largest banks here globally. That was orchestrated back again, like I talked about earlier, in 1913, when they, almost Christmas Day, when they announced that and put it together. This is the 3rd central bank that the U.S. has had. There were 2 other people that tried to, Andrew Jackson actually did remove the central bank at the time and reinstate the Treasury. Lincoln was also looking to move to a silver-backed or gold-backed currency, and he was removed. And then Kennedy was trying to move us to a silver-backed currency, and we know what happened to him too. So all that being said, I am very hopeful that this is a real transition away from the Fed and the IRS and taxes and all the unfair and unjust things that have been done to the American people. But I have to live in the reality that we have today and use the rules as they're written to our benefit until we're in a position to be able to change them. So who's doing it? I would say there are, how do I want to say this? Larger players that the Rothschilds owe money to. I think this is their way of calling the dead. Lazy Bones says, legend. Part of your theory has suggested the partial collapse of Bitcoin and Tether. Do you find it ironic that Iran is now accepting payments in those 2 assets and the yuan to pass through the strait? Like I've been mentioning all night, it's really good recourse to be able to sanction those protocols, just like they did Tornado Cash. Is that going to happen? I don't know, but it's an interesting narrative. Hummingbird, thank you for the 589 on the super chat. They say, hey Jake, love all that you do for the community. I heard that Franklin Templeton chose Ondo to tokenize their funds. How does / will this affect XRP? So I was at the Ondo summit, and like a couple minutes into the presentation, the first presentation before they got into the new product that's trading stocks and stuff, they were talking about the treasuries that they currently tokenize and how those are settled and through what markets. And they had Figure Markets and Franklin Templeton up there as the 2 marketplaces. And adjacent to those on the slide, guess where those are settled? Yeah, it's the XRPL. So if Franklin Templeton's choosing to tokenize their funds on the XRPL and their marketplace is settled on the XRPL through XRP for the treasury products, and they're working with Ondo who's tokenized those, it would only be fair to assume, again, I assuming could make an ass out of you and me. Okay. So again, take it with a grain of salt, but based on me being in a room where I saw this on a slide and it was presented to a large group of all the professionals that were there at the Ondo Summit, I would make the case that it's likely going to settle on the XRPL and through XRP as well. Wayne, my man, he says, Captain Jake of the XRP Army. Do I have my little bobblehead? Where's my bobblehead at? The one time, I know I just saw it. I don't know where he is. Oh, here he is. Hold on. He's not on the printer. You moved him. There we go. Captain Jake. My bobblehead. He says, how do you think the Biden era inflation we're about to experience again will affect the markets and crypto this year? Look, You guys want to blame presidents. If you want to blame presidents, Trump allowed the QE the first term, okay, which caused a ton of inflation during Biden's term. I don't care. I don't get into politics. I'm not right or left. I'm not Democratic or Republican. I think it's all just two wings on the same bird to be able to accomplish objectives here, okay? The inflation that we're experiencing in this economy right now is to front run the deflationary collapse that's coming. They know that when they implement blockchain technology and AI and these things converge, the deflationary pressures of that are going to be far beyond anything that we've ever seen for technological advancement. Over the past 20, 25 years, technology is about 7 to 9% deflationary each year. Okay, so if things were advancing on the technology side, you would assume that production costs would be coming down, and they are. However, the Fed's mandate is to keep us at a 2% inflation rate and hold jobs in a certain area. So they print more money, M2 money supply expands exponentially when we have advancements in technology to be able to offset the deflationary pressures that causes in our economy and keep or maintain that 2% inflation rate. That money tends to make its way into people's hands that have the highest earning power, and they tend to invest it in assets to be able to maintain or hold that purchasing power of whenever they received that capital. That's why, you know, about 10% of people in the US actually own stocks on the stock market. It's very few that directly own stocks. Most people own stocks through their 401k or their IRA from their employer. So all that being said, I think that they're doing this on purpose. I don't think it's one side or the other. I think that they know the economists that sit on these calls, like Jim Rickards and many others, have seen this coming from a mile away. They know that liquidity is going to get sucked out of markets and there's going to be a repricing. And in order to be able to mitigate that risk or reduce the volatility or the issue as much as they can, they're front running that with as much inflation as they can bear up until that event happens, because it will offset some of the deflationary collapse that we would have experienced otherwise. Like, this is, again, like high level macroeconomics. It's not just normal stuff. And again, like, the president doesn't make these decisions. Okay. Hate to be the bearer of bad news. Now, can Trump affect some things? For sure. It's obvious that he can through the tweets and other things that he's doing. Is that a good thing? I don't know. You know, his family is able to trade the markets and have some insider trading and knowledge before he's putting that information out there. Are they benefiting from that? Probably. Have others done the same thing? Did Biden give contracts to people in his family for, you know, government projects and things? Absolutely. There's corruption across the board on this stuff. It's not like it's one side or the other. Okay. So all that being said, I think that this is a coordinated effort to reprice assets globally when they know that the reverse carry trade is going to unwind, and they're, you know, juicing M2 because the velocity of money is so low, and they know that's going to pick up on the other side of the implementation of distributed ledger technology. And all that being positioned correctly, if you had actuaries or quants that could run these numbers and make sure that you're, you know, within the means that you need to be based on dynamic variables, then you could actually coordinate a soft landing. I know that's difficult to believe, but I do think everything that's happening right now, like a lot of people are like, oh, they're stupid, they don't have a plan. I think this has been planned for decades, meticulously planned for decades. I don't know how else to like catalog the coincidences in my mind other than it being planned meticulously for decades. If you're paying attention, it seems very orchestrated. So anyway, again, I'm pretty down the middle of the aisle on stuff, and I don't think one side of the aisle actually makes decisions or the other. I think it's all a dog and pony show to get you guys riled up and at each other's throats and get whatever objectives need to get done across the line based on public perception. William says, hello, Jake and the Tea Lady, sole member LLC, tax preparation, Form 1040, Schedule C, service, business and personal bank, still deduct LLC setup costs. That's not really a question. I'm assuming you're working with us on the tax service, which is awesome. Glad to see that you have the sole member and you're using the right tax form. It is a deduction, whatever tax service or preparation you're using, it's a pass-through entity. So, you'd be able to deduct that cost right there on your 1040. Cody, he says, hey, Jake, still tired, boss. I need a little motivation to help get through until price appreciation. It's coming, my man. Again, I'm trying to give you guys the play-by-play. The reverse carry trade is going to unwind. Are they going to be able to kick the can to the meeting this month? Maybe it's before then, but I do believe they're going to have to raise 50 to 75 basis points this month, which will cause things to move. But again, they're only going to do that if they're sure that we can issue the stable coins here in the US. So as long as we come to terms on that, and again, we talked about the Titanic at the beginning of this. I don't know if that means anything or not. I'm just referring to a CZ Binance quote, but sure would be interesting if that's how they time this deal. Bet Vegas, Nevada says, hey, Jake, will the new corporate veil service offer human connection versus AI or non-typical scenarios, cost for human contact? Thanks. Yeah, you can call in and talk to our support team. We will have most of it automated, right? So as we roll it out, it'll basically hit you with notifications there in your app, help you walk through it. I'd like it to get it to where this is going to take a little bit, by the way, right? But this is my vision for this. It's just a voice note. So you log into the app, it says, hey, you need to do your meeting minutes this month. You say, okay, meeting minutes, asks you 4 or 5 questions, you talk to your phone, and then it does it for you and you sign. It's done. Should take you less than a minute if it's done the way that I would like it to be done. Same thing with board resolutions. All of the written actions or written consents to be able to move money from your personal bank account or between accounts, all of that will be documented right there in the app real time. And it basically pulls it up for you after you make a transaction, says please sign, you sign, and it's done. Or maybe there'll be an auto sign feature, right, where it just gets done for you in the background and it's cataloged. So all those things, are stuff that we're working on. But if you do need a person that you want to work with and you have some additional questions, our support team will be there to help you. Won't have 24/7 to start with, but that is the goal over the long term. And again, we will be augmenting things with AI, just like everybody else is, to be able to answer. When I'm on other websites, I can get 60% of my answers from the AI. But to your point, there are always circumstances outside of that where I'm like, sure would be nice if I could just talk to a person. So because I've had those experiences, we want to make sure that those people are available for you. And, at scale, that's going to require a decent amount of overhead until there's a Google Voice thing that can, actually replace people, which I think we're still far off from. Maybe 6 to 8 months is kind of my time frame on that. But even then, if you want a representative, just say representative like I do, and you'll get a real person. We got Seymour. He says, good evening, Jake. Please help me understand something. If the XRPL is the road and the XRP is the vehicle that travels on the road, how does that make RUSD stablecoin passengers in that vehicle? Thank you. So let's talk about destinations. Well, I'm trying to think of a better analogy for you. I think XRP is more of the gas in the vehicle that allows you to move value. And the vehicles on the road would be issued assets. So, depending on what the person wants on the other side of the transaction. I mean, I answered this earlier. You've given me a weird scenario to work with here that doesn't really work with how this technology actually looks and works. I like it though. I like that you're thinking through analogies instead of just like, arbitrarily saying this or that. So let's say it's the email protocol. Okay. Everybody uses the email protocol. You send an email today. I guarantee it. When you sent that email, it got to the other person. They received the data. They read the email. You didn't have to think about that, right? It just got there. And because you have whatever you have, Microsoft or Yahoo or Gmail, I don't know what you use, but the other person had something different. They got Hotmail or, what's the SBC Global? Every once in a while, I'll see one of those emails. I want to show me in the chat. If you have an SBC Global email, I want you to post. Don't post your email in the chat, but just raise your hand because I like those people. Anyway, all that being said, it's a data packet is what moves that across that protocol. XRP is the same thing that data packet is. It's moving value though. So if you wanted to send $1 in RUSD or British real or Brazilian real to somebody else, there's a lot of interchange right now through XRP between RUSD and the Brazilian real. There's a lot of remittance going into that corridor. When each counterparty wants something separate of what the other one's sending, that's what moves through XRP. If both counterparties are okay with receiving the same collateral, then you don't need XRP. And there's situations right now where they don't use XRP. Now, if there's enough liquidity in XRP and it can settle faster, it still might route it through XRP, even if it settles on the other side in the same asset. But we're not there yet. There's not enough liquidity in XRP for that to happen. But at very high prices, there could be. I'm sorry I don't have a better analogy for you other than the email deal. I like where you're headed. Let me think on the car thing. Because if you leave in one car, you don't get somewhere else in a different car. And you don't the car doesn't convert one thing to another, which is really what XRP does. It allows settlement and conversion all at the same time. Maybe it's a convertible. I don't know. I'll think of something. I'll make it spicy for you. We got GDT or GTD, excuse me. XRP says, "G'day, legend. What's going on, brother? If you don't own chickens, you're not a real investor. Thanks for standing tall and calling this out early. Disappointed that some people look down on you. DWP to the moon." Thank you, man. I appreciate the kind words and the support. Look, I have my opinions. Sometimes people don't agree with my opinions on things. Sometimes I'm wrong. Right? And you guys, I come on here and tell you when I'm wrong. If I call something wrong or I'm off, there's a lot of times I've been right. My batting average is good, but I don't hit them all. I don't think anybody does. So, my expectation of our employees and other people that work at our company and people that I deal with is they're going to get it right 7 out of 10 times. 2 of those times that they get it wrong, I'm going to have to explain to them how to fix it. And one of those times, I'm going to have to do it myself. They're not going to do it, or they're not going to know how. So if you guys can give me some grace in the same capacity, I would appreciate it. I think I'm 7 for 10 on a lot of the calls that I've made. Now, some of the ones I've missed have been, some people have bet more than they should have on that. And that's, again, it's not my fault. I did not mean for that to happen. I don't want people to make their decisions based on what I'm saying. I say that on every show. And again, I am just a guy on the internet. You should take it with a grain of salt. Watch multiple people before making those decisions. So all that being said, thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the support. Excited to be working with you. And I'm also, sad to say there are people that don't like me, but can't make everybody happy, and part of the game. We got G Thord. He says, Jake to the Dane to Jake the man. After price appreciation, can I use XRP at DWP for your services? Yeah, we were thinking about integrating MoonPay. We're looking at a couple different people that can facilitate payments in crypto. And we're also working with Anchorage to be able to take XRP in kind for our services. So as of today, none of that works, but we are working on that. I'd have to sell on exchanges anyways. Thank you. God bless the USA. Hopefully when you come work with us, we have something where you're able to generate enough income off of it within the first 30 days to be able to pay the cost and fees, right? Like that's the whole point of this. We want to be providing more value than we're taking. The yield product that we've been working on for a long time, unfortunately, is not fully in our control. There's a counterparty that just, for whatever reason, hasn't sent us the legal documents. We got everything ready to go, ready to launch it. Just, I don't know. I don't know why they're not moving forward. I can't get a straight answer. So all that being said, we are looking at a couple other options for a yield-bearing product for monthly dividends and returns to people, so that they can cover those costs. Because I understand people's opposition. You're like, hey, I can hold it on my cold wallet, and it's free. And if I move it in here, it costs me money. Now, there's another side to that. It helps us get into a position where we can continue to build these services and create these offerings and do all that. And again, that's why I said some people like hold a small amount with us to be able to help support us. And they also have super safe assets that are in Anchorage, and they have access to all these other financial products and things. What I would say is you get a discount on the trading fees on our side. Even if we do charge an AUM fee, we're substantially cheaper on the trading fees. We're 20 bips for any amount. There's a lot of people out there charging you 3.5%, 5%, depending on the spread and the fee that they're charging. And you're paying it, right? So there's some offset there. We like to align incentives with people. So if your assets grow, we make more money, you make more money, everybody's happy. That's the way we've structured it. We want to incentivize people to hold their assets over the long term versus, having, like, as a fiduciary, if you're telling people to sell their assets because that's how you make money, is that really in their best interest, or is it in your best interest? That's a question, right? Again, I don't have the answer to that. I'm not these other counterparties. We've structured our fees the way that we have very much on purpose. And I'm a client. So I wanted it done a specific way, and that's why we've structured stuff that way. But yeah, we're working on being able to take payment in kind. Rick Daddy, what's up, dude? He says legendary husband of the tea lady. There you go. Maybe I'm the legend because of my wife. I'm good with that. Locked it down. A couple questions. Number one, proof of Buffett position in yen. So he's only made one. Actually, Buffett's no longer in control. So take first question off the bat right here. Buffett is not making decisions at Berkshire Hathaway. His last day as CEO was December 31st. There is a new CEO making the calls at Berkshire. So they do have exposure to yen. I don't remember which. There was a couple different articles that showed that. And it's significant. They rotated out of U.S. Treasuries and bonds into Japanese yen to be a liquidity provider. Next up, he says, do you ever struggle with the 1K price point as people with 1 million XRP become billionaires? No, I have a lot of them that will be that I already have friends that have that much and will, go on yacht parties. And I don't think that that's going to be an issue at all. Favorite to win the Masters, God bless. Look, here's the other piece of this. If a few people get rich off of this, they don't care. Do you know how many people have 1 million XRP? Like, you can look at the rich list and see the wallets. To be in the top 0.01% of wallets, you need 3.8 million XRP. That's 770 wallets as it sits today. To be in the top, to have more than 1 million XRP in your wallet, and there are people that have multiple wallets that have over 1 million XRP and it's diversified. So I will, give that caveat. There might be 2,500 people, maybe a little bit more than that, because some of them are holding assets on exchanges, and I know multiple people holding over 1 million XRP on an exchange. God love them. Yeah, so maybe 3,000 people become billionaires. There's billionaires printed every single day. There's hundreds of billionaires made every single day. Well, not every single day. I think there's around 3,000 billionaires globally. So you basically be doubling the number of billionaires on the planet through one single event. And most of those people are going to mess it up. They're going to be lottery winners. They're going to not have it structured correctly. They're going to get divorced. They're going to have creditors come after them. 3 to 5 years from now, many of those people that become billionaires very quickly will go bankrupt. And I'm not saying that to fearmonger or, belittle people or sound better than anyone. That's just the reality of the situation. It's statistics. Now, I would say that the people that have 1 million XRP tend to be a bit more savvy financially than the average person. They tend to have already accumulated significant wealth either through business or other investments, and tend to want to understand a lot of what we're doing and have been very proactive to make sure that they're mitigating risk and structuring this to protect it and grow it over the long term and set it up the right way. But I know there's a lot of people on Uphold that have over 1 million XRP sitting on Uphold that don't have anything structured to protect their assets. So, that's concerning to me. But yeah, probably double the number of billionaires on the planet when this thing goes. But again, I don't know that that'll last very long. I think that many people will not do well when that happens, unfortunately. So who's going to win the Masters? Both Phil and Tiger are not playing at the Masters this year. Not really sure who my favorite is. I'd love to see Scotty do well. Scotty hasn't been playing as well in his starts this year in 2026. Who's the guy that there's a guy that just won the Players that plays pretty well, that could do well here at the Masters. And then Players at the end of last year, not this year. Well, it was Players earlier this year. I think the Players was earlier this year because they had the Island Green and all of that. So I think that already happened. So, the answer is I don't know. I'd love to see Spieth do well. I played with both Spieth and Scotty growing up here in Dallas when I was younger. So there's some nostalgia and I want them to play well because they kicked my butt so bad when I was a kid. And if they win the Masters, it makes me feel better about them beating me when I was young. But anyway, I'll be watching. I'll be excited to see who takes it. And I'm sure you guys will too. I am not going to get to all the super chats tonight. I've been slacking, not getting through these fast enough. So if I miss your super chat, I'm going to go to the bottom and work my way back up. If I miss your super chat, please send it via DM to one of the channels that we have, or you can always email it to info@digitalfamilyoffice.io and say, hey, Jake missed my super chat. Please send this to the tea lady, and they will get it over to us, and I will read them next Monday. We've got the old nail pounder. He says, oh, legendary legend. I'm Carbon One. LLC Trust ready to go. Price appreciation bag is just shy of 40,000. Best way to take some profits to square up finances after price appreciation. Well, you could always sell if there's no tax implications, but you're going to limit your upside if you do that, right? You could borrow against it, but you're going to have to service that debt. I know that. My phone's dead. or you could park it with us and hopefully be able to generate some monthly income. I don't know how much you're short or how much you need. I would talk with a financial advisor. You can schedule a time with our team over there. Sounds like you have pretty close to what you need to be able to work with us. So I would reach out or go to the contact us page at digitalwealthpartners.net. When it asks you if you have a certain amount of assets, just say yeah. I probably shouldn't have told y'all that, but like you'll get through and they will schedule a time with you and get to talk to somebody and like really figure out your situation and what the best avenue is for you. And again, we want to provide value to people. We do charge $300 most of the time for the consults. But you know, if you're qualified, an advisor will reach out to you. Cartwright, he says, Brother Jake, I know I need an LLC first. However, times are tight right now. I'm somewhere in the 2% club. How much is taxes going to hurt me if I wait till price appreciation, or do I need to sell a kidney to get an LLC before? Look, you don't need an LLC before price appreciation. Okay. Let's see. You're in the 2% club. So let me look and see where that's at. I think you're going to be okay. Rich-list.info. We're going to go to statistics. We're going to look at 2%. Okay. Got a healthy bag. You know, over 22,000 XRP. So let's play this out. I'm going to assume you're married. Cartwright sounds like a mature name. I have no idea. I'm just going to play out a scenario. So you're married. The gift tax threshold here in the US is $30 million between you and your spouse. I don't know if you're male or female. Doesn't really matter. So collectively, you guys have $30 million that you gift out of your taxable estate over your lifetime. If you have 22,000 XRP and XRP goes to $1,000, you only have $22 million. You're good. You're fine. And at the 1%, you're at 45,000. So maybe you have 30,000 XRP and you're in the middle of this range here. You're going to be right at the threshold at $1,000 XRP. So I think you're going to be just fine. You could wait till post price appreciation. You'd have plenty of money at that point to set up an irrevocable trust and structure your estate the right way. Anything over, so let's say it continues to run faster than you think it's going to, or faster you can set things up. Fine. You move the assets into the LLC. You're going to gift small portions of that LLC, the equity there, to your children or other people you want to take care of. You're going to get a 409A done on that company. And if you had, let's say it went to $50 million worth of XRP in the time frame that it took you to get all that done, you could now squeeze that equity down to $30 million because of the minority owners on the cap table. You're going to get a 25 to 35% reduction in the value of that company. And you'd be able to gift the whole company into an irrevocable trust if you wanted to. The sooner you get stuff done, the less of your gift tax threshold it takes up. Does gifting it out of your taxable estate reduce taxes? No, it actually increases taxes because assets held inside of an irrevocable trust, if it's done the right way, are 37.5% on anything more than $15 million generated. Now you can pass those taxes to the LLC that it's associated with outside. If there's an LLC inside or outside, there's flow through, and you can pass those taxes. And depending on how much income the LLC made, you might have a reduction in the taxes owed. Because again, anything over $15,000 inside of that irrevocable trust is taxed at 37.5%. But if you can pass those taxes out, and the LLC is paying a different, tax threshold of, call it 22% or 24%, now you get a reduction in the amount that you have to pay. And again, you can use things, how that money works, to be able to mitigate taxes if you're structured correctly and working with good professionals. So I think you're going to be fine. If you wanted to wait, again, our normal recommendation is somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000 of crypto investment. As of today, your value wouldn't quite meet that. So I think waiting till post price appreciation, you're going to be just fine. And again, like we sell these next week, they're going to be $1,500 instead of $2,000. people that, you're basically going to get $500 back on the renewal fee for the promotion that we're going to run for the $700 renewal that you can pay early. And that way, kind of offsets the difference there, because we do have a lot of people that paid $2,000. And again, we're able to reduce the cost now because we're not working with Laughlin, but we do want to pass those savings on to people. So this is the way that we're able to do that. GM says, did the documentary ever come out that was talked about last year? GB to you. God bless to you and the T-Lady. Neither one of the documentaries that I was in last year have aired yet. Actually, I take that back. Money Disrupted is out or coming out soon by Fruition Films. Go check that out. I'll be in that in multiple scenes, and there's a bunch of stuff there. The other film production company is, they finally got in with Stellar and a couple other people to be able to film them, and Danelle Dixon and some other people. So they're still finalizing things. I think that'll probably come out in early Q3 this year. Which will be really cool. It's a very extensive documentary on how money has progressed over time. True the Hearts says, if people have a small bag to sell on Robinhood for over a year, where do they want to send this to sell? Uphold. Also, shout out to the Mastermind and the T-Lady. Thank you. And our Uphold app would be, so we're white labeling their solution. It would be the DAG app. Right now, it's a web portal. We're going to have an app on your phone in the near future, where you'll be able to do all this, manage your LLC, your bank account, your crypto, everything in one spot. We do have a reduced trading cost there because you pay the monthly deal. There's a reduced trading cost versus what it would be on Uphold. So if you have an LLC with us, probably hold it over there on our app. And then you're not going to have to worry about, getting flagged or frozen when you move it to your bank account, because we know it's crypto, not going to be flagging you for large amounts if you're working with us. I think I got one more. Nope, we did this one. Maybe I got through all the super chats. Maybe I did. Oh, here we go. Bucks, my man. He says, you mentioned 1500 TPS isn't currently enough to scale, and Bobway has a patent for subnet that can fix this. Is this something that can be utilized as soon as they need it, or will it need time to get approved? They could utilize it as soon as they need it, as far as I'm aware. Because it's a subnet that's implicit or explicit, it's not on the main net. They could route transactions through it. And I'm sure, again, like when it's needed, they will roll it out very quickly. Bad Boys, he says, what the chance crypto or stocks will be worthless until we get less radical president that doesn't constantly scare the market every other week? Again, I think this is all orchestrated. I think that there's a narrative that's being portrayed here. I think it's to get people like yourself in a tizzy and upset. And something I tell my son all the time. If somebody makes fun of you or somebody disrespects you in public, pause, let whatever they said sink in, and then ask them directly if they are intentionally disrespecting you. But all that being said, like, if you're unfazed by other people's emotional state or reaction to things, they can't provoke you. You can stay calm and think clearly through those situations. I think people would do much better. And also, like, anything that's outside your control, you can't really do much about. So why spend the time worrying about it or getting upset? You just do what you can do in your life to be able to control and improve things for yourself and those around you. So all that being said, you sound, not saying this in a mean way, sound a little emotional. I would put the phone down or the crypto down or whatever you got going take a step back, just to think about all the wonderful things in your life that you can be grateful for. Breathe a little bit, and just know that everything's working out. It's going to work out. It's going to be divine timing. All the wonderful things are coming to us. We're in position. It's taking a little longer than we would like it to, and that's okay. It doesn't mean it's not coming. So I'm here with you. I get frustrated plenty of times too, and those are the things that I have to do personally, and like, woo-saw, pull myself back, center myself, and make sure that I'm not getting emotional or making rash decisions. We got Ian I'm going to butcher that. I'm not going to say it right. Thank you for the super chat. They say, if Iranian oil is sold using BTC, will there be the queue for the powers to be to send it to zero? I really wish I could share a story right now, but I'm not going to. It's something I've talked about in the mastermind before. Just once, there was a conversation that I had in like October last year with the chief risk officer of a very large bank that I talked to, that may have insinuated something to the effect of what you just said. So anyway, all that being said, I don't know. It's possible. We'll have to see how things play out. Harperable says, can XRP preserve personal financial freedom in a highly controlled financial future system, or will it depend on the same coerce infrastructure people are trying to avoid, mark of the beast type of the future? All of what you said right there is the reason I don't own XLM. I think that's the peer-to-peer solution. XRP is an enterprise application and settlement system. It's nobody can freeze it. Nobody can claw it back. They can blacklist your wallets if they don't want to interact with you, but they can't keep you from interacting with other people in the ecosystem. So, you could move somewhere else in the world and work with China or other sanctioned countries or whatever if you were blacklisted here in the US, but they can't take it from you, and they can't force you out of a system. And that's the whole point of this deal. That's why other sovereign nations want to adopt it, is the US doesn't have control over who can do what with the asset. So I do view it, to your point, as opting out of what it's going to look like in the future, because this is their system and we're basically getting to pilot it and put liquidity in it to be able for them to test it. And we have that privilege so that we have, some of us have an allocation. But all that being said, I do think it is a way to be able to opt out, and you will have more freedom holding certain digital assets than you will if you're not. Reed Scott, he says, LLC, Carbon 2 member, glad to see you, dude. Uphold app tomorrow. What? I swapped my other crypto to have more XRP. Still hanging on to HBAR. My fiance said I should keep it. Please tell her we're right with our conviction on XRP, Jake. I mean, I don't own anything other than XRP, Reed. So, sounds right in my book. But again, I'm just one person. Can't give you financial advice. I can only tell you what I'm doing, and that is what I'm doing. Lucas, he says, hey, Jake, can you explain why the reverse carry trade did not occur when oil spiked in early 2022? What is different this time? Thank you. So bond yields in Japan in 2022 were still very low. They hadn't raised bond yields, and those weren't moving up as aggressively as they are now. They also hadn't raised interest rates at all. So the reverse carry trade was still viable. The economics still worked. And even though energy costs went up in their economy, they did have to start, raising interest rates at that point. But it wasn't to the point where you would see a rotation out of U.S. treasuries into Japanese bonds as U.S. rates come down and Japanese go up. We were also at a very low interest rate at the time, and also had room to go higher to be able to offset the inflation in our economy and strengthen our dollar, which we did. But now we're at a point where we've really kind of run that route, and we've got to move rates back down because people need liquidity. I mean, you're seeing this with the credit defaults and the private funds and all of the things that are being, redemptions are being halted. So all that being said, we have got to move rates down. Japan still needs to move rates up, and you're going to see a rotation out of U.S. Treasuries into their bonds, and that is the actual unwind of the reverse carry trade and how the dynamics sit today that are different than they were in 2022 or 2024. And we also didn't have stablecoin regulation to be able to drive demand here domestically for those bonds as they flow onto the market, and that's why I think they kept it from unwinding in 2024 when we saw 13% down in the S&P in a single day. If they had let it unwind then, our bond market would have collapsed and we would be in a very bad spot right now. So again, everything's aligned for this to be good timing for them to allow that to happen. We're going to take two more and then we're going to wrap it. We got Rocket 99 XRP. He says, hey, bro, do you still talk to people who are in the know that give you 99% certainty? If so, when was the last time you spoke to them? Nice haircut. Appreciate that, man. Fresh fade. Got that this morning. Last week. Yeah, last week. Mock 5050 says, give me the best outlook for 2,500 XRP within the next 12 months. God bless. You're not retiring. That's the best outlook I got for you. You're not retiring if that's all the XRP you have in the next 12 months. And I don't say that to be mean, but like you need a perfect storm to align to get to like a $10,000 XRP in that time. I'm having a hard time in the next 12 months. It's possible. It's possible that we could see a $10,000 XRP this year in 2026. I think it's going to be in 2027. It could be in Q1 of 2027. And if that's the case, then, I mean, you got $20 million, $25 million. That would be enough to retire. You could park that and earn 5% and be just fine pretty much anywhere in the world. I would argue that to retire comfortably and live off the passive income and not touch the principal, probably need $15 to $20 million. If you're younger. If you're older and you don't plan on living as long and you're okay with not just, and you're going to eat into some of the principal, then less, right? Like 10 million, maybe even 7 million, depending on how old you are, you could probably get away with. But so best, absolute to the moon, best case scenario possible, you're retiring with $25 million in the next 12 months. Highly unlikely. Again, I think $1,000, sure. So that's 2.5 mil. Not enough to retire. Supplement your lifestyle, sure. Not enough to retire though. $2,000 XRP, maybe. You got 5 mil. Still not enough to retire. So you're going to be looking for that $10,000 XRP. You're going to be looking for the derivatives market. You're going to be looking for a lot of things to shift and change in order for it to be able to get to those prices. Again, not out of the realm of possibility if everything plays out in the perfect scenario, which, again, to even get to the prices that I've been talking about, kind of has to happen, right? Like it's a perfect storm type situation. So, again, take it with a grain of salt. I don't mean to say that that's not enough XRP for the next 12 months, but even me, who is like the largest bull of anybody on the internet for XRP, I still think you're going to be a little bit short of retirement in a 12-month period. Longer duration, sure, but it'd be hard pressed in the next 12 months, unless, again, like I said, perfect storm plays out, sure. We'll do Nancy and then we'll go. She says, Carbon One, 2008 crash survivor. What will life be like when the reverse carry trade happens? Can you please elaborate on how you think it will play out, the impact on people's lives, and how long it might drag on? I've got a whole video on that, Nancy. If you want to go watch the fourth iteration of the domino theory, I talk about the effects for the average person, what that's going to look like, deflationary pressures. I think I even touch on UBI and how that's going to work in there with the deflationary pressures and the ability to print money in opposition to that, to be able to dole that out across the economy incentivize and disincentivize spending in certain sectors. You know, I've touched on this a lot. So there's plenty of stuff out there, and I hate to just, you know, skirt your question, but we're at time here. So I appreciate the support. And if you don't find what you're looking for on my YouTube channel, if you're in the mastermind, just post it in there, and I'm sure many people will be able to share it with you. So with that, I am going to wrap it. Hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday. Excited to have the app launching next week. Be able to work with you guys in the LLC, have trading there inside the application alongside a bank account and all the other wonderful stuff we're going to be rolling out to our clients. If you need an LLC and when you want to go ahead and get it done, you still can go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and use the code 50OFF, 50OFFDAGLLC. I think they've reduced that to 1,500. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. Digital Wealth Partners still have a lot of people onboarding their assets, holding it over there at Anchorage, getting access to all the products and solutions that we have there. You can go to digitalwealthpartners.net and go to the contact us form. And again, if you want to get on the waiting list to get into the app a little bit early, you can go over there to beyondbroke.com, use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2 there in the mastermind. With that, yeah, hope you guys have a wonderful night, a wonderful week, and we'll see you on the next one.